All right. Looks like it's all good.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess I'll just dive right in. I'll start up with the first question.
Yeah.
What was the inspiration behind the title?
Well, the title was actually something I had written down a couple years back. Just a random like phrase my son actually just said one day. I don't remember what it was even a reference to anymore, but I just remember hearing him say that, and I was like, it sounds like an interesting, turn of phrase. I could possibly use that at some point.
Hmm,
And so then I came up with this book, and I thought it'd be a great title for it.
cool. All right. Um, I guess so. The novel has a really kind of interesting structure. The way I kind of described it in my review was like, a whole page had been written out and then all of the unnecessary stuff was deleted and it was just the
Mhm.
bare bones of what you needed. Um, what was that always going to be the case with it, or did that kind of develop as you sort of went along?
No, that's pretty much how it started out. It started out as a completely different book, probably around 40 some thousand words.
Hmm.
Um, but I didn't really. But there was a particular scene that I did use in this book. Was kind of, I don't know, I found more interesting, so I wanted to explore that. So I ended up taking that out and going a different direction with it.
Hmm.
Um, I guess it really started with I just read Andy Nowicki's book, Considering Suicide, a couple months prior, before I
Hmm.
decided on the actual structure of the book. And his was written as an epistolary novel. So I knew that would probably be the best format for me to tell the story in, which I thought is an interesting way to tell a story. So that, and then also, I think it was around the same time I read James Fry book Katerina. It's very short, choppy sentences, no punctuation, sort of thing. And so that was, I guess, both of those two books in particular were sort of an inspiration for what my book ended up being, really.
Hmm.
Um, but I did I did want the book to be well. I tried to make it come across as much as a actual journal as I possibly could, instead of just being too crazy. Um, or I wanted it to be readable stuff. So I wanted it to be disjointed, sort of aphoristic in a way. Although that was more kind of like a more of an accident, really.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, that's how it pretty much started. The book that it originally came to be is still something I could probably work on at some point. But yeah, this one is yeah, something I wanted to. Well, I guess I was more interested in at the time, really.
Hmm. Yeah, well, now you pointed out, it does seem very like it seems like the most genuine kind of journal that I've read in like novel form, because sometimes you'll read a book that's supposed to be somebody's journal and you're
Mm.
like, nobody writes like this in their journal.
Right.
Nobody sits down and writes these massive long, because it's just not what you do.
Right.
So that's something I definitely, when I was reading it, it definitely felt like the sort of like you were saying, the sudden kind of choppy sentences that are like, but at the same time, it felt very sort of like each sentence was very thought out and very like precision accurate to what you were trying to get across with each sort of singular sentence.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess when you sit down to write, or like when you at the beginning of a project, um, do you outline? Do you come up with sort of do you have if you don't outline, do you have a kind of wider story in mind, or do you just sit down and see what happens?
No, I don't use any kind of outline at all. It's too much work. If
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't like doing that. But so usually what happens is I'll have an idea maybe, and or actually really it starts out more like a movie in my head really, and I'm just writing down what I see really for the most part. That's what happens at first, and then I don't really consider that part the writing part really. For me, the writing part happens after the fact. So that
Mm.
like the editing, editing is really the writing part for me. The way I feel about it, like that's where the real writing takes place.
Right. Yeah.
So and it's usually the hardest part. But yeah, the first part is just more fun. You just kind of just you know freewheeling whatever comes to mind, write it down, almost like a stream of consciousness sort of thing.
Mm. Yeah, that's definitely the best stuff for me as well. Is that beginning stage where you just like, because for me anyway, I'll go into these like kind of fugue states almost where I'm like, yes, this is so good, this is brilliant,
Mm.
and I'll write it down, and then the next day I'll read it and be like, fuck, this is just the worst thing.
Yeah,
Like I've never
yeah,
read such bullshit in my life. and
yeah,
then
yeah,
you'll and then that's when the editing comes in, obviously. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, the editing for me as well is definitely the most difficult part. Do you edit it yourself, or do you get an editor to come and?
No, it's all just me.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to do it because I mean it's well one I can't really afford to pay anyone to take a look
Yeah.
at it really, and then two I mean it's just better for me. I mean as a writer, just
Mm.
to grow whatever
Well, it's full control as well, right?
yeah
You're
right
not handing it off to somebody that doesn't understand what you're trying to do.
yeah I don't want anybody meddling with. I mean occasionally someone will have a valid criticism, but usually it's never anything that's actionable really. It's just
Mm.
fluff and then you know
Yeah. Like there's too much swearing.
yeah, and
It's like,
that's a big one I get. Or another one I get is a lot of people have described this book in particular as just smut, and so what I guess it is. I don't really, I'm fine with that title. I don't really care.
yeah. Well, I mean, I definitely wouldn't call it smart, but
I appreciate it.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I think, well, speaking of smart, I talked about in my review, and one of the things that got me excited about reading it was that it seemed like you were mingling um, sex and sexuality in general with religious fanaticism,
Hmm.
and how those two kind of mingle. I haven't really seen explored all that much, like to the degree that you go into it in your writing. So, um, was that always a part of the story from the beginning, or was it something that you just kind of found along the way?
Um, I guess really along the way really
Mm.
that part came into it. I've always felt that there's a certain uh, I don't know how I would describe it. There's a certain sexuality that comes along with religion. I think, in particular, like what her brand of the character's brand of religion,
Mm.
which I would describe as evangelical Pentecostalism. Um, in particular, when I mean, when someone has what you referred to in that religion as being touched by the Holy Ghost, I mean, what is that if not, a public orgasm, really? I mean,
Yeah.
ecstasy washing over someone. I mean, so it's very sexual,
Yeah.
in nature, by nature, I think.
Like when you see those videos of people like, oh, the Holy Spirit's touched me. It's like, looks
Yeah,
like he's touched you somewhere.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a publicly acceptable orgasm.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
I've always thought that. I'm like, why, that's clearly what it is. And then, but everybody acts like it's some kind of like everybody acts like it isn't, but people are like riding around on the floor like scream. It's like, what else could it be?
Yeah, clearly.
So is that? I mean, I guess from the podcast, the Bastard Sons of Oedipus podcast, I've heard you sort of talk about how your family was religious or whatever, but it has religion and the kind of darkest aspects of religion been something that's fascinated you like forever, or?
Yeah, pretty much since I was old enough to pick up a book, I guess, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I was, I mean, I remember, like I was not just like the Christianity side of it, but even like the like Satanism. I always found had a certain affinity for. I remember I was a kid. I would, we were poor, and they would tell you, well, this is God's plan for you. And it always upset me greatly, because why would God want me to be so goddamn poor?
Yeah.
And so I remember, like, at certain points I would try to pray, and at certain points I would actually try to pray to the devil, even. Hey, my soul's available. Get me out of this fucking poverty.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's always been something I've been having to grapple with.
Yeah, I remember when I was first sort of getting into the whole like religious stuff, I was kind of, because my family is not religious at all, so they've always kind of encouraged me to go, read about it where I can. And so I was, looking through Satanism and all the kind of, the rules and everything and all of and I was like, shit, this kind of makes a lot of sense. Sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
And I think sex has always been a huge part of religion, I'd say. Like, going all through history. Like, and I find it very strange that people have kind of forgotten that now. Or like maybe it's the whole kind of like seeing Christianity, I guess, especially as being like this pure thing that like can't be touched by sex, but I think it's so clearly ingrained in the very essence of what it is. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
No, I mean, yeah, I think you're right. I mean, there's yeah, I mean, it's always there. I mean, I don't know how you can really separate the two, almost, really. I mean, but I also think that a lot of the times the sexual repression within that religion is there for almost a purpose. It's there to like almost like it's almost used. I mean, it's just me kind of speculating, really, but it's almost used as like a way to enhance the sexual pleasure that you do actually get to enjoy, because it's like the taboo is there, like, the phrase is, what is it? There's no desire to transgress until the law is put in place,
Yes. Yeah.
So it's something like that going on.
I think also there has to be some kind of like, I mean, the whole thing we get now of like, the Catholic Church covering up all these horrific cases of like child sexual abuse. There was this one fucking piece of shit that got off in Australia recently. I can't remember his Cardinal Pell or something, and he was like, he just did the worst shit imaginable, and somehow he's just like living it up now in Italy. He's just hanging out with the Pope. They're best mates. It's just like whatever. So I do you think that there's that whole thing, and this is sort of getting into another topic now, but that whole thing, that has to come from repression, right? Would you agree with that, or do you think it's something else?
I mean, I imagine some of it probably is. I think a lot of it is just certain professions tend to draw certain kinds of people. So
Yeah.
if you're, I mean, if for example, if you're a pedophile, you're more likely to gravitate toward professions that are, come in contact with a lot of children, teachers,
Yeah.
coaches, priests. Or if you're a violent person, you'll gravitate towards the military or the police, something like that.
Mm.
So I think it's probably more to do with that really than any kind of sexual repression.
Mm.
Or it's just what I think.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, it kind of points out a major flaw in the system, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, hey, come into this classroom with a bunch of small children. Here you go.
Yeah,
it's like, who wants to do this? The guy that's like, yeah, me.
Yeah. The guy that's a little too overzealous, he's probably raising red flags there.
Yeah. He's like, oh, I love being around children. It's like, okay, buddy, chill out.
Yeah, we would keep you far away from children.
Yeah. So one of the most chilling aspects of the novel for me, and probably a concept that's stuck in my mind ever since reading it, because I'd never come across it before, was the idea that Mother, and maybe I misinterpreted this, but Mother was attempting to have children just to kill them so they could go back to God. Was that sort of right? What? Yeah, that's just absolutely horrific. And it was like, and it was just so affecting. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. Where did that idea come from?
Good question. I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, I guess it's part of it probably arose from, I don't know if you've seen the movie Frailty by any chance. Matthew McConaughey. Yeah, it's where he's like, he gets a vision from God, and then he's got a task to go hunt demons.
No, I haven't seen that. But...
Okay, well, it's a good movie. Check it out. So it kind of came from that. But in my case, it's like the reverse of that. He's killing, or she's killing innocent people. And then and she's trying to increase the number of souls in heaven and sort of win the battle of good versus evil, and then she'll be welcomed as a saint. So that was sort of her motivations there.
Yeah.
So I guess it probably came from that movie, perhaps.
Yeah, there was something about that was just so creepy. Like, it felt like something out of a are you familiar with the kind of sort of folk horror genre that, the horror sort of rural English, sort of like backwoods, burning wicker men kind of thing?
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of that a little bit, because there's a lot of, really strange folk traditions in England that are kind of similar to that.
That's true.
And so when I was reading that, I felt like you were kind of tapping into that element, maybe. Was that an influence on you, like the kind of horror?
I mean, it was. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of influences. Hard to pin it on anyone in particular, I guess. But there's also a song that I really like by PJ Harvey. I don't know if you're familiar with her or not, but she has a song called "Down by the Water," and it's a similar. Or she drowns her kid in that song. She sings about it, and so that was also another influence. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of influences. Those like Midsommar and things like that. Yeah. It's pretty fucked up shit.
Yeah. But
but it's stuff I like. Whatever. I guess because I'm fucked up too. I guess, but
that movie's great. I love that film.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that
good.
and The Witch.
Yeah, which is
Yeah,
really good. Yeah, yeah,
that's a
that's one
great
of my favorite
film.
ones. Yeah, that's
Mm.
good. Yeah, I really like that one.
It was kind of like I can't pin down why I love that film so much. It's partly the historical detail. Like I was watching it and I was like, yes, he even got the bloody
Yeah,
like
yeah, it did a lot of
stitching
good.
accurate.
Yeah. Actually, that one has that movie has similar themes to this book. I would think it's about a young girl, Thomason, who is maturing sexually, and the family starts to notice it, and how
Yeah.
what kind of problems that brings within the family, and they try to get rid of her.
Mm.
So yeah, maybe that's why I like it too.
Yeah. That's a great film. I rewatch that every couple months.
Sure, yeah, it's
And
really good.
yeah, the my mates are like, why are you so obsessed with that movie? It's just like a weird, and I'm like, no, you have to like, you don't understand it. Um,
Yeah, everything came together for that film. The atmosphere, soundtrack, cinematography. I mean, everything. Just even this the silence in that film.
yeah,
The way the sound is. I don't know. I don't know. It's good. I like it.
I can't believe that was that director's first film.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
just blows me away. Like, I heard that he studied um, The Shining. Like, he watched that film over and over again before he made The Witch, which makes sense to me because the atmosphere is
Yeah,
sort of really palpable in both those films.
it makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. I didn't know that, but it makes sense now.
Yeah, he's my favorite director working today, I think.
Yeah, mine too. Yeah, I'd say mine too.
Hmm. Um, yeah, The Lighthouse was great as well.
I haven't seen that one yet. I haven't seen it, but I've heard good things.
Oh, dude, that's such a brilliant film. That's like, yeah, two horny dudes stuck in a lighthouse, mermaids. It's great. Um,
Sounds good.
um, so the way that you write the violence in the book
Mhm.
is like, you know, I found like it was very similar to how violence is in life. Like, you start off a scene where things seem fine, and then all of a sudden, without any warning, something really blunt and brutal and shocking happens, and then it's over.
Mhm.
And it's like and then you move on. And I found that was quite the way that you presented it. There was no kind of like, I don't want to say like, it wasn't dragged out. I think when I read violence in books a lot, it's very, it goes on for pages and pages and they're describing everything. And with you, it was just like, this happened, this happened, this happened.
Yeah.
It's god awful. It's fucked. But that's it. That's what happened. So is that how you think, do you think violence in literature and film should be presented in that kind of way, or do you think it's irresponsible to present violence in like a fun kind of, you know, Quentin Tarantino-esque way? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I guess it just depends on the story, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess most of the time it is dragged out for too long, and that's
Mm,
just I guess bad editing for the most part.
yeah.
But for in this particular case, I wanted it to be more like almost like an eyewitness account, really. Like you would just you know
Mm,
he's writing for himself basically, so he knows all the extraneous shit. So you don't need to write that down. So he just writes down what is it, exactly what he saw. So
yeah.
that's what I wanted to come across.
That's interesting. So he's yeah, I never thought about it from the perspective that he was writing it purely for himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know who I thought he was writing it for, but um that's Yeah, that I guess would explain sort of like he knows all the extraneous shit, right? So he doesn't need to
Right.
write all these extra pages or
Right.
whatever because he just wants
Yeah.
to get to the heart of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Um. So the way that I saw the narrator's character and the creator and the character of Christy and Mother, they all seem, and I hesitate to use this term, but it's the only one I can think of at the moment to best describe what I'm trying to get at. But they all seem like kind of like archetypes in a way. So the narrator was kind of very innocent until he's thrown into this world of like debauched, you know, fanatical sex. And
Yeah.
Christie's sort of like it's like she's, I think we in one of our message exchanges, you were talking about how she was just kind of raw sexual energy and she was
Right.
so in touch with her primal self. And that's just,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then,
That's why she was raised to be, because
mm,
in that particular religion,
yeah,
because women aren't really given agency at all. So they're more. I think I use the phrase beast of burden. That's how
yeah,
they're pretty much viewed, and so that's what she identifies with.
that's so rough.
Yeah.
Jesus. Is that, see, because I don't know much about religion in America, to be honest, because
Mhm.
and just religion in general, like the whole Christian kind of side of things, because I was never really a part of it. But is that sort of the way that all women are perceived in that?
Not all across America, but in particular where I'm from, and so it's like a very rural, cut off from most of the world sort of situation.
Mm,
And in that particular, so in this religion, which is well, they call themselves the Holiness Church, which is just an offshoot of Pentecostalism.
mm,
So they're long skirts, they never cut their hair, no makeup, televisions out the window, no books, nothing. So it's very almost Amish in a way, really.
mm.
Um, so in that religion, yeah, it's very much the women are kept in place.
And so you were raised in that?
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
So no
But
books, no TV.
well, no, that's my dad's side of the family. So that I was
Right,
so on my mom's side with the she's a Baptist in her
right.
family, so they're a little more lenient.
Mm,
Um, so that's so I was mostly raised in the Baptist side of it, but I mean I wasn't we did go to the my dad's grandmother's church, which I read about that part in a new book I'm coming out with.
mm.
Um, but yeah, so on his side of the family, yeah, there's no it's very old time religion, let's say.
What's the reasoning behind that? Or is there none?
Uh, you mean as far as like why they're so fanatical,
Yeah.
or
Like what is the kind of like why do they think that it betters them? Like that they're better because of the fact that they're completely kind of isolated in their own kind of sphere?
yeah, it has a lot to do with isolation.
Mm.
It also has to do with the fact that they see evil and the devil in almost anything, really. But pretty much anything that would give almost pleasure to anyone is looked upon as suspect. So I mean,
That's so
if,
bizarre.
if it's outside the church, and if it the only thing that should give you any kind of pleasure is Jesus. Anything else is kind of strange.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that makes that would explain. But it seems so like it's amazing to me that people still exist like that. Like it seems like
Mm.
something that should have ended in the 13th century, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. 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 It does.
Um
In the new book, I actually describe them as relics, really.
Yeah.
So, which they're pretty much our relics from another time. And when I'm whenever I'm around them, it feels like well, it feels like I don't belong for one, but it feels like I'm looking at them like in like a tourist at a zoo. I'm looking at these strange people.
So Christmases are awkward.
Yeah, but then there's also this aspect of them looking down on me because I'm not part of their religion and so forth. But yeah, it's a strange dynamic.
When did you realize it was all bullshit? Is that too personal?
No, it's fun. That was pretty early. I mean, I never really believed in the first place. I tried to believe the way I describe it. So I tried to believe for a long time because and then I think I was around the age of 10, I believe, somewhere around there, and I was told about or I think it was 10. So the Sunday school was telling us about like one of the only sins that wouldn't be forgiven was blasphemy, and so they described it as not really believing in God or denying God, and I was thinking like, holy shit, I don't really believe and I'm fucked, and I was like. I was pretty torn about it, and I couldn't talk to my mom about it because she, believed that was true. So I mean, she couldn't really give me any kind of comfort there. So I kept it to myself for a long time, and then so I would just pray pretty much every night. Make me believe that you exist, and I'll read the Bible constantly. I've probably read it more than they have. So that's how it started. But then I think. And at some point, I stopped caring really. I didn't really consider whether or not God existed or not. I just didn't really care. I didn't really care at all. It was completely irrelevant to my life. But really, I guess when I started reading books like God Delusion was one of the first ones I read, and I was like, oh, okay, so it's all bullshit. There we go. Like it kind of confirmed what I already knew, but I had like more of a philosophical background or platform to stand on. And then just kind of went from there. And then, actually, I guess before that, I believed. Well, I say believe, but it's not really believe. But I guess I pretended to believe that God could still exist, and that He was just like everywhere, like a Spinoza God, like. So God is everything. And so, but then, once I started reading those books, I was like, oh, okay, I'll take the word God out of this, and everything stays the same. Nothing changes, so I just drop that word and I move on with my life. And that's exactly what I did.
Yeah, I think it's so hard for me to imagine all this because I grew up in a community that was just so like broadly just atheist. Like every kid at school growing up was like atheist. And then if there was one kid that was like a Christian or believed in God, we'd be like suspicious. We'd be like, why are you like, what do you mean you believe in God? That's all bullshit though, isn't it? That's what our parents have told us. And so when I found out about these kind of very isolated religious communities that practice all this bizarre shit that you were talking about, it sort of, it seemed like a fantasy novel or something. And then
it's pretty I mean look on the outside now. I moved away a couple years back, so it's like some 600 miles from me now. But from anytime I go back, it feels nothing changes there. So it feels like just walking back into your old life again. Except only now you're even more unfit to even live there. But there's sects there now that they're called snake handlers. They handle snakes when they worship, or they drink strychnine to prove their faith, and all kinds. You can imagine what kind of shit goes on there. I mean, it's just crazy, man. But people get bit by snakes and they refuse help, and they die usually or eventually. And actually, the authorities have cracked down on those particular ones, but they still pop up every once again.
Wow. Have you read The Loney by
no, I don't think
Andrew
so.
Michael Hurley?
No.
Sorry.
No, I haven't.
It's a it's very much about. I have a review of it on my channel actually because I've read it a few times. It's very much about the fanaticism of a small kind of religious community, and like how it's not as, I wouldn't say it's as sinister as what's going on in your story, but it's very much about how it like governs literally every single aspect of their lives, from like the fact that dinner needs to be perfect, like they have, if something's wrong on like Easter morning or whatever, they'll just like it. It's almost like they can't handle it. It's like their reality shatters or something if one thing is out of place. And like, to me, that just seems so obviously delusional.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a certain pathology.
So I would for sure recommend that book. It's kind of about like this small,
I'll check it out.
Small community that goes to like a beach house in England, and the kind of isolated communities around this beach house obviously have their own religious ceremonies and rituals, and it just kind of causes this clash that's like, it's pretty horrifying, but it's great.
Sounds good, yeah.
Towards the end of the book, there's like this, there's sort of not a lamentation, but like a reflection by the narrator on the darkness of, the darkness that hides in plain sight in the places that you grow up in, and how it's sort of like, it's inevitable that that's going to seep into you in a way. That's kind of how I interpreted it anyway. Do you think that, how important do you think those formative years are, and the places that you grew up in, do you think that they're the most important in a way to your development as a human being, or do you think it's just one step along a broader?
I think some of your earlier formative experiences are more important than people realize. I mean, there's things that happen to me when I think about them constantly. I mean, I'm never not thinking about them.
Same here.
Know whether or not that's has helped me or not. It's anyone's guess, but So I think I think it's very important that the first 5-10 years of somebody's life is probably the most important years, because it sets the tone and pace for everything else. Like everything is, like for me at least, everything is due to some of the earlier experiences. Everything is stained almost for me, and so I view everything through a certain lens, I guess. And well, in my case, I guess it means I'm more cynical than most people, more nihilistic than most people, and it's due to that. I mean, I like to think it's also due to the fact that I came to these conclusions through valid reasoning and so forth. But at the end of the day, you can't deny emotion, trauma, all the rest. Those play more pivotal roles than anything else.
Do you think it's important to, in later life, confront those formative years? Whether that be through art, through yeah.
I mean, I guess it is important to do that. I wouldn't say everyone should do that. I mean, I don't really know what. I don't know if you're going to get any kind of, catharsis from doing that. But you can take from it what you can, though. Just, I don't know. Hopefully, you can maybe turn to something good.
Yeah, my personal view is that catharsis is kind of a myth in life. I don't think it exists.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you just, I think, whatever happened to you, whatever memories plague you or whatever, there's no such thing as like, you're not going to escape them, and they're not going to come to an end, and you're not going to get some kind of reason for why they happened.
Mm.
So yeah, I would agree with you. I think it's
Yeah. Also, for me at least, the idea that you can move on for something like that is almost like you're forgiving the people that harmed you, and I don't like that idea. I want to hold on to my rage as long as I can.
Yeah,
Because I don't forgive anything, but even if I wanted to, I mean, the person that it was done to is I'm not that person really anymore. That kid grew up, but I can't forgive, and I'm not going to for his sake. I have to remember for his sake.
same here. I used to be sort of obsessed with the idea of forgiveness, almost in a religious way, honestly. Like I used to be like, oh no, it's important to forgive, but the older I get, I'm like, no, fuck that.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, it's and I don't exactly know, and I don't know about you, but I don't know quite what to do with that rage. I mean, at the moment, I channel it into my writing, but I mean, I guess it's fuel to a certain extent to keep going, because I feel like, and this probably isn't healthy, but I feel like if I didn't have that rage, I'd probably just like not get out of bed. Just curl up in a little ball in the corner.
I feel that. Yeah. For
Have
me,
a little cry.
If I didn't channel it into writing or something, I would probably just be an addict or something. Just some living in the gutter. Which I'm not far from that now, to be honest.
Well, I think that channeling it into art's probably one of the healthiest things you can do.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel so sorry for people who experience traumas in there, whenever, but they can't write about it or they can't express it. Like that just to me sounds like proper hell.
Yeah. I mean, if you can't express yourself, regardless if it's rage or not, I mean, it's pretty terrible.
And I think that's probably like why I find the whole censorship thing that's going on now really disturbing, because I feel like if people aren't allowed to write or create what they need to be able to better themselves, or not better themselves, but like channel the rage into something. Like if we're no longer allowed to do that because it might upset or offend some people, I feel like we're all fucked. Personally.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good way to describe it, actually. Yeah, but we're probably all fucked anyway, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I think this like I know some writers have put like trigger warnings in the beginnings of the books, which I don't really understand. I mean,
No.
Life doesn't have a trigger warning. I mean, and I just don't. I don't know why we. I mean, I understand. I want to be sensitive I don't want to be insensitive to people, on purpose or anything like that. But when it comes to consuming anything, whether it's art or cereal, there's some responsibility on the part of the consumer to figure some things out for themselves. If you don't like it, then don't buy it. If you don't read it, I mean, you don't have to start a campaign to deplatform it.
No, exactly.
Unless it's blatantly, like just no value, social value, or otherwise racism or anything like that, then I can understand. But otherwise, if you just find it gross or offensive from some way or another, I mean, okay, then move on.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think there's a line to be drawn, like something that's actually racist or sexist.
For someone
Like,
to say, yeah.
if it's genuinely that, fine. You know, I don't have a. People were very upset about Trump being kicked off Twitter, but that was like, great. Yeah, get rid of him. I don't care.
I didn't care at all.
Yeah, it's like good.
Yeah.
But for things, yeah, like I don't know. Oh, this word's like getting so offended by a word that you try to stop, a film from being shown at a theater. It's like, fuck me. Like, what are we? Life's too easy now, I think. People complaining about inane shit.
Well, yeah, that's definitely true. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that, I mean, all of us are living more and more, at least here in America, at least, more and more precarious lives. And I don't know, this is one thing they can have some influence over. It's probably pretty much the only thing they can have influence over. So they latch onto that one thing, give it, this undue importance and amplify it. And so that's what they do. I mean, they can't control anything else. They can't control how much their landlord charges them. They can't control how little they get paid or anything else, how much, student debt they have. But they can go on Twitter and raise a stink, and they feel like they have a little bit of control in their lives when they don't actually have any control at all.
I've never thought of it like that. That's really sad when you think about it.
Yeah, it's very depressing.
Yeah. Oh no, Cody, now I feel sorry for the woke brigade.
Well, don't feel too sorry for them.
No, I won't.
Yeah.
So when you sit down to write, do you have a certain time of the day that you do it, or do you just sort of?
Usually it's in the afternoons, for the most part, majority of the time. Usually right after I put my wife's in the bed, my son's in the bed, I have like an hour or so to myself. But yeah, usually, I mean, or sometimes, a lot of times it's just, whenever I'd have the time in the mornings in between one task or another, scroll through it. Maybe I don't necessarily add anything new necessarily, but I go through and edit some things,
Yeah. No, okay, yeah, I forget that you have like a kid and like a family and like responsibilities, and I just wake up and, whatever, eat some Cocoa Pops and then sit down with a coffee and do my writing and then fall asleep. Like
it sounds like the dream, man.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
That sounds great.
Yeah. I forget that other writers have responsibilities that they have to actually work around. They can't just do whatever the fuck they want all day. We talked a little bit before about influences on all the sweet prettiness of life, but sort of just in broader terms, who are your biggest influences, do you think? Or what artists do you admire the most?
Well, as far as writers, Bukowski is definitely one. Emil Sharon is another one. Actually, he's probably one of the biggest ones, actually. Then we got probably Ligotti is up there. Even Stephen King's up there too, actually. Carver. And actually, I forgot his name suddenly. Guy wrote Winesburg, Ohio. I can't even think of his name. Oh wait, Sherwood Anderson's a big one, actually.
Wow, so many there I've never read. I've heard of a few of them, but Ligotti, probably, of all the ones you just mentioned, is probably the only one I've read.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, definitely check the other ones out, but especially check out Sherwood Anderson's Winesburg, Ohio. That's one of the books that inspired Hemingway to write, and all these other writers. He's like a mentor to them.
Oh
And
wow.
that book is really good. It's really good. For the time it was published, it's very. Once you read it, you think, wow, I can't believe this is really from that time. Really, it's really good.
Mm. Yeah, I just picked up a book called Wolf Solent by John Coper Powers, and it was
Mm.
written in the 1920s. But I
Mm-hmm.
read the first couple of pages, and I was like, "What the? This sounds like it was written yesterday."
Yeah.
And like that's, I think, the mark of like a real genius
Oh
is
yeah.
when that's like, it sounds like some kind of like postmodern, like a deconstruction of the literary genre, and I'm like, wow.
That's cool. Yeah,
Um,
and in this book, what he does basically is like that Winesburg is a fictional town, or based on a real town that he grew up in Ohio, but the town itself is fictional. And so he does these caricatures of people in the town, like he'll write these little exposés on them, sort of. And so he'll describe them, and it's pretty good. I like it.
nice. I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah.
I've been getting a lot of recommendations lately. Sebastian Weiss sent me a
Yeah.
few, and all of them look fucking incredible. So I'm like, yeah, I've just got to let my bank account catch up.
There you go. I know how it is.
Yeah. Um, um, I heard you talk a little bit on the podcast. Well,
Mhm.
actually, on the podcast that I was a guest on, you talked about how you had a book sort of upcoming, that James wrote the forward for, and
Yeah.
can you sort of, if you want to, I don't want you to reveal anything you don't want to reveal, but could you talk a little bit sort of more about that?
Yeah, sure, it's fun. So yeah,
Cool.
it's basically I guess it's really what it ended up being is more like a memoir in essay form. So the first part is a bunch of essays, and then the last half is just a couple of short stories I threw in there, just kind of spice things up
Mm,
a little bit. But they're all linked thematically with basically the same theme, which is well, by my estimation, but the biggest theme is loss.
mm,
Um, and then there's also antinatalism and guilt and all the rest, but for me it's loss. So yeah, so the first part is I go through a lot of things that happened to me in my life. I kind of describe those in detail.
mm,
Um, so I talk about my dad, his drug addiction, and what that was like, and uh, talk about bullying as a kid. I talk about going to my grandmother's church for the first time, which is a very interesting experience. Which is well, actually that happened as a result of my father relapsing one time, and we were all drugged there basically.
mm.
But that was a pretty terrifying experience. Yeah. So and then let's see what else I'm talking about. Talk about antinatalism. There's an antinatalism essay in there where I kind of explore how the one aspect of antinatalism is sort of overlooked is the fact that it can be very classist.
Mm,
So certain people they like antinatalism, but only for like the poor. They don't want the poor reproducing.
mm.
So I kind of explore that idea. And then the short stories, a couple of those are actually previously published in other journals that I've been accepted in. So I just kind of put them all together in one place.
Cool. That sounds really fucking interesting, man.
Yeah.
Can't wait to get my hands on a copy. I
Yeah. I was gonna say I'll send you a PDF now if you want to take a look at it. Maybe blur it, maybe.
oh, awesome. That'd be really cool if you do
Yeah.
that. I would yeah, I also have added American Bullshit to my cart. It's just like sitting there and I'm staring at it. I'm like, okay, I'm waiting. That and the recalcitrant stuff of life I've got
Yeah.
sitting there.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm reading Any Day You Can Die at the moment because I'm
That's
going to
good.
be
That's good.
doing an interview with Tommy.
Nice.
Um, it's so good, man. I just like, I think maybe because I'm Australian
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
like reading it, I'm getting all the little. I'm just like, yeah, I've never seen it done like this. Like,
Yeah.
it feels like when he's describing, um, like when he's describing sort of interactions he had with his mates back in Australia, I'm like, oh, that's how I talk to my mates. And it feels very like validating to see that in novel form.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually have a question about American Bullshit, even though
Sure.
I haven't read it yet. But what was the kind of starting point for that one? Was it something that sort of slowly built up over time, and then you?
Yeah, actually, sort of was. I mean, I worked in corporate America for about 5 years maybe. Then I got laid off because they decided to restructure some things.
Mm.
And so after I was laid off, during that time, I had obviously a bunch of free time. So I decided to talk about, well, the first thing I wrote was talking about the experience of just working at that just hellscape of a place.
Mm.
And so they kind of went from there. Then I started and then the next year actually, when I actually started working again. I guess other ideas, and I was just basically just talking to them among people I knew, and then they were like, kind of encouraging me to write some more things down and maybe put it into a book.
Mm.
And so yeah, that's what I did.
Cool, man. And all of your stuff's self-published, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think that that's the best way to go nowadays?
I guess it depends on what your goals are, really.
Mm.
I mean, if you want to try to, I don't know, make a career out of it, or I don't know, if you have ideas about being famous or having your book turn into a screenplay or any of that,
Mm.
I guess traditional publishing would be more like something you should pursue. But yeah, for me, it lines up perfectly with my goals. I don't really have any goals of being well known. I mean, I've already come to terms with the fact that I want to be just laboring in obscurity for the rest of my life, and I'll die and be forgotten. So that's where I'm at.
Mm.
Um, yeah. So and then I like the full control of everything. I
Mm.
like that. It is more of a hassle, obviously, but the biggest hassle for me is marketing. I'm just terrible at it. I don't self promotion. I'm horrible at. It just feels icky to me in a way.
Yes. Mm.
Uh, so, but everything else, I mean, it is more of a hassle and stressful and all that. But it is fun. I mean, cover design and all that. It's pretty fun.
I think that's why I couldn't self-publish, because the idea of like, especially like being one of those fucking booktubers or whatever, that's like, hey, look at my new book. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I could do that.
Yeah, yeah,
It just seems really gross. I
yeah.
think
It
I'd
is.
probably, hide it right down at the bottom of the description.
Yeah.
Like, book here, buy it if you want. It's pretty shit though. Like that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. I feel you.
Um, yeah. I even when people read my stuff, maybe this is just because I don't have any self-esteem, but
Mm,
like when people read it and they're like, occasionally they'll tell me it's good,
mm.
and I'll be like, and I'll just be like, oh, shut up, like I can't even believe it.
Yeah, yeah,
So the idea
yeah.
of
No,
promoting that is like, ugh.
yeah. It's rough. It's rough. It feels well icky, like I said. But yeah, people read things that I've written, and most people hate it, to be honest. But occasionally somebody comes through and says, yeah, this is pretty good, and you think, are you sure? Because everybody else kind of hated it. I don't think you have very good judgment. You see, and the self doubt still there.
I swear I'm not kissing your ass here. I don't see how anybody could read All the Sweet Prettiness of Life and think it's bad. I
Well, I
really
appreciate that.
don't.
I
Because
appreciate it.
I like it just seems so well constructed to me, and so like
Hmm.
um yeah, it seems like you got what you wanted across in a way that I feel like I could never do in a million years. I feel like if I tried to get all that into, you know, a writing, like into something I wrote, it would be like 500 pages long and nobody would read
Yeah.
it. Like
Yeah,
I wouldn't even read it.
I appreciate it. I appreciate that. I really do. I really do. Yeah, for me, it's always I'm of the philosophy, I guess you could call it, that everything can always be shorter. So
Yes.
that's what I always kind of always think. I read something that I've written, and I always go, okay, how can I cut out 1,000 words just out of this one section? Just I want everything stripped down to I want it to be readable, and I want there to be a nice flow through everything. So that's my biggest goal really when I write. I want everything to flow. I want it to be real easy to read. And unfortunately, the easier something is to read, the harder it is to write. So it's kind of a strange relationship there. But that's kind of my goal. I want everything to be really easy to read. I don't want anybody to have to, stumble across, any sentence or paragraph, but also want it to be, profound. I almost want every sentence to stand on its own. If that makes sense. I want every sentence to be, you take it out, you just, make it like, put it on a T-shirt. There you go. I want every sentence to have that kind of life. So that's what I try to do.
Well, you definitely succeeded, and I can imagine how, I think that would drive me insane if I tried to do that. I think I'd go nuts.
Yeah. Well, I've been right to the edge, right to that precipice, and
right.
So, yeah.
Do you ever get over that self-doubt about whether your work's good or not?
Not really. I mean, I just don't really think about it at this point. I don't really consider whether or not it's. I mean, if it's good to me, then it's good enough, I guess. But I don't really. I mean, I don't worry too much whether people are going to like it. I mean, I know if I like it, I know at least maybe a handful of people are going to appreciate it. But for the most part, I don't really. It's one of those, out of sight, out of mind sort of things. Like I try not to read too many reviews. But yeah, there's always a self-doubt there. I always think like, for me, I always feel like if I think about it too much, I mean, like I said, I don't try to think about it at all. But when I do, I feel like, I'm like imposter syndrome sort of going on, where it's like am I really doing this, or is this like, and then it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's just, if you think about it, it's always going to be there. But the best thing you do is try not to think about it. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to cover all that with alcohol or anything else.
Yeah. Also, I just wanted to say I definitely took your advice on board, like when we were doing the podcast, and you said if you're not shit scared of what you're doing, you're not going far enough.
Yeah.
And so I took that on board. I just wanted to let you know. And I'm terrified constantly, but I think it's really making what I'm doing better. So thanks for that.
Good. Yeah, no problem, man. Yeah, it's always. I think there's a quote by Sharon. I think it goes. I'm probably going to butcher it really, but he says something along the lines of, "Don't write books unless you're willing to put in them things you would never confess to anyone."
Yes.
So
that's great.
So that's kind of my philosophy too.
Yeah, I was writing. Actually, no, don't worry about it. I better not talk about it until it's released. Actually, no, I will. I'll cut it out. I'll just tell you. When I was writing that out, I was like, fuck, I can't put this in here. I can't, because it's just going to be too. I feel like I'm confessing something. But then I'm like, no, it's good because I'm scared. And it's reading it back. It was like so palpable, and I was like, I could feel the rage, and I was like, yeah, this is good. So yeah, just thought I'd tell you that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, if you read it and you can, the emotions immediately come up again. Yeah, I mean, it's going to do the same for somebody else too. So I mean, yeah.
I mean, what the guy does in my book is kind of what I wish I could do. But, obviously I didn't. I just sort of, cornered him at school one day. But that's, yeah. But yeah, like, to me, it's it seems like it's maybe the only kind of catharsis that exists for me is getting that stuff out on the page.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel pretty much the same way. I mean, even if it's like, not even a real catharsis. I mean, it's better than nothing.
Yeah. So in terms of like your writing, how many projects do you tend to have going at the same time? Like how many do you juggle in your brain?
Well, right now I got 3 projects going on now.
Mm.
So, I mean, I don't know. The more for me, the better it is. The busier I stay, the better I tend to feel for the most part. So, I guess because it leaves less room for thinking about anything else.
Mm.
So the more the merrier for me. I mean, I there's a limit to that, obviously, but I haven't found it yet.
Mm. Yeah, I think for me, because the majority of what I write, aside from what I'm doing, presently, the majority of what I write's historical.
Mm.
So obviously, and I fucking hate it when things aren't historically accurate. Like it really pisses me off. So
Yeah.
I have to do mountains and mountains of research, and juggling like various projects kind of sometimes gets a bit like occasionally I feel like I'm gonna have a nervous breakdown, but
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, so for me, the way I usually do it is like in the morning is more, for whatever reason, it is more amenable to like nonfiction sort of things.
Mm.
In the afternoon, I guess I'm more tired in the afternoon, so I'm more like, I don't know, freer to just dream about or think about,
Mm.
whatever kind of scenario I'm thinking about for fiction, to use in some kind of fiction piece.
Mm.
So that's generally how I split it up.
Mm. Yeah,
So, so
sorry,
the
go on.
less, I was going to say, so the less, or the more alert I am, the more I'm better able to do. So something that requires, research or whatever.
Mm. Yeah, I used to do writing for this thing I'm working on. I used to do writing in the morning and then research for a bigger project in the afternoon, but I found that it was just too. The writing of this thing was just like sapping my energy.
Hmm.
So I really think I only have one more question, man.
All right. Well,
So, uh, so just to close, what are you reading at the moment?
well, now I'm sort of in between books at the moment. I just finished up finally Called Out of Darkness,
Mm.
which is Anne Rice's memoir about how she sort of found her faith in Catholicism again.
Mm.
It was actually a pretty good book. Actually, I really liked it. Of course, I thought she was sort of like took a sort of a head in the sand approach to some of those public scandals, but
Mm.
otherwise, the part she talks about her family and stuff, it's really touching.
Mm.
And so next, I think I'll probably jump into. It's hard to say. I don't know yet. It's just so many things to pick up.
I
Actually,
know how you feel.
yeah, it's hard to, But actually, I just finished a play also by Marcia Norman, which is really good. Not Mother is the name of that. It's a really
Mm.
good play. It's about a girl who decides one night she announces to her mother that, at the end of this night I want to kill myself, and so they have like a little back and forth sort of thing.
Right.
So I guess I'll probably pick up maybe another play. I don't know. I'm kind of a play kicker recently. That's actually something I'm gonna try to work on in the future. Maybe if I can
Mm.
come up with an idea, I'll not try to play. But maybe I'll read. Blitzed, I think maybe. I forget the name of the author now, but it's a history of the Third Reich. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's
No.
it basically talks about like the drug use and how the role drugs played and the rise
Oh
of Hitler.
no, yeah, I know what you took because my dad was obsessed with that for a little
Oh,
bit. Yeah, nice. Yeah, so I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
okay, yeah, good. Yeah, so that I might pick that up actually. That sounded interesting.
Mm. Yeah, well, just on I've written a few screenplays, and they're definitely for me anyway harder than writing a
Okay.
novel. They're a lot more difficult because
Mm.
it's like, you know, it's people think that it's sort of like, um, I mean, I guess it's similar in that it's the written word, but it's so completely different. Like it's just two different things.
Mm.
And so it takes me longer. I get crankier. I stay up later. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
So, but when you finish a screenplay or a play, it's like the most because it's the most rewarding thing because it all fits together perfectly, and you're like,
Yeah,
yes.
right. Yeah. Yes, as soon as yeah, I'll have to tackle it. I mean, I haven't done that before. I mean, yeah, it should be interesting. As soon as I
Mm,
figure out what kind of play it needs to be.
mm,
So, yeah, I guess I'll jump into that maybe next year.
mm. Yeah, well, as I said, I'm reading Any Day You Can Die, and then I think I'll dive into Heart Like a Hole.
Mm. Yeah.
That seems like really like right up my alley.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Um,
you should have her on the show too. She's really great.
yeah, I'd love to talk to her. She
Yeah.
seems like, yeah, she seems like a lovely lady, and she seems like she
Yeah,
writes.
yeah, she's also nice enough to read early draft of my new book and give a blurb for that. So yeah, I
Oh,
appreciate her for
nice.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I can't wait to get to that. The idea of like a kind of psychopathic surgeon to me is just like that's so cool.
Yeah.
Like an idea I wish I thought of.
Yeah.
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 Um. All right. Well, that's it. I really appreciate you
Sure.
uh coming on to my channel. It's uh yeah, maybe we could talk about American bullshit or this new thing that you've got in deeper detail
Yeah, we can do that.
some point in the future.
Sounds good. We can do that.
Yeah. Um okay, so I'll just stop the recording.